Jasper. Thank you for watching again. Thank you for tuning into the channel. And I've got a very special guest here today with me. It's Hannes Dreyer. Thank you very much for joining me.
My pleasure.
Hannes Dreyer is a property guru for many years in South Africa. I've been following on various channels in my life as being an accountant, and also he's been inspiration, and also some of my clients used him in some of his courses. And I'm going to ask him a few of my property questions and also some of his daily habits that I'm very interested in. So firstly, I know you're still doing YouTube channel videos and giving property advice, and also recently some other things. Would you want to give us some feedback on what you're currently busy with?
Yeah, I think what I'm doing, I'm trying to teach people how to become wealth creators. And a wealth creator is basically a person that knows how to create, to grow, to protect, and to enjoy their wealth. And basically there's a strategy, we call it the wealth creator strategy, which a definition for that is the intelligent use of limited resources to go from where you are to where you want to be in the shortest possible time with the least amount of risk. And the way to do that financially is the only way that you can actually do it is to get enough growth on your surplus. In other words, the amount of money. Some people will say it's investment. I don't think they really understand what investment is, because investment is an expense. So I'd like to shift and get people to think a little bit differently about their business, about investments, about property, and about life in general, because wealth, actually there are 7 pillars to wealth. But the easiest way to teach a person is to take them through the financial step. And I started with the property simply because I had a system. I developed that system in 1987 already. It's exactly the same system that I'm using, that my children's using, and the clients that that you saw using exactly the same. So there's no change. And everything boils down to just one simple thing. That is, your investment growth rate must be higher than your financial freedom growth rate. And you can do that in various ways. You can do that with YouTube. You can do it with Facebook. You can do it in your business, any type of business. And the most entrepreneurs, unfortunately, they basically try to survive, you know, and for that reason, they make an income. They take all of that income in order to try to stay alive, instead of learning the skills. Because in order to become successful, it's actually a very simple process. You need the right information in the right order for the level of the game that you're at. And then you have to do it. Unfortunately, people listen to unqualified people, so to speak, people that has never actually achieved it. I retired at 37. So what I'm teaching is basically what I've done in order to be able to retire. I've been on retirement 7 years before I started teaching this stuff. And basically my wife forced me into this by saying to me, you can't keep this information to yourself. Go and share it, because you've got the systems, you've got the principles work. And yeah, the people that if they are using it, it works. And if they don't use it, it's not going to work. But I think our biggest problem that I'm sitting with is the mindset. In other words, we believe a lot of nonsense that we've learned, you know, through the financial planning system or the educational system or university or colleges. And that basically is in short what I'm doing. Anywhere where I can grow my money. I normally take a challenge first to be able to prove to people that they can do it on condition that they follow the strategy. And then, yeah, we show people that it is possible for a normal person to retire in 5 to 10 years on condition that they've got the skills. And by retirement, I do not mean retirement in the sense that the financial industry teaches you to sit and do nothing. I mean that we're in a position, because if you look at the different levels of freedom, the first one is a financial freedom, then it's time freedom, then it's a freedom of choice where you can choose what you want to do and when you want to do it and how you want to do it. And then the last one, which I think is the most important one, is of course the freedom of purpose. That is where you can pursue your passions, like I'm doing at the moment. I'm teaching, and I absolutely love it. And that is
so based on your teaching, you also you have various courses. I know, like you said, the property courses. Do you have an online course, or is it a seminar based? How can people link into that course and get educated?
Okay, all the courses I've switched over to the internet, simply because it's just a million times easier, and people, it's a lot more convenient. People, most of the people that are my students, they are working on a full-time basis, and they have to fit this in somewhere down the line. So all the courses are recordings, and then there's the internet courses where I'm actually taking people through the process, give them like assignments, and then it's built on this wealth creator strategy success principle, where we start always at the basics. Even if you think that you know the basics, you're going to be surprised to see that we do not always know the basics, and then start like in stepping stones, build it so that you can. But it's on the internet. So you simply go to hannesdreyer.com or Wealth Creators University or wealthcreatorsmethod.com, and the courses will be there. If I can give you a tip, subscribe perhaps to my email list, because from time to time we do give the courses at special price. So if you're just going to log in, the chances are that you're going to pay the real price for it, but I normally package a deal when we are launching a specific, like, for example, the property mentoring program, or the cryptos, or the business, or the rainmakers, or the internet marketing, or whatever.
I can maybe just add, I also follow you on YouTube with a lot of added value information that you put on there. And through that's where I got to your newsletter as well. So I think people can potentially log into to YouTube and follow you on YouTube and all your added value, free added value information, and from there get to your course as well, I believe.
Right. I think that is the purpose. Our job is to teach and to educate, and a way to do it. Not everyone's going to agree with what I'm teaching and how I'm teaching it, and for that reason I throw it open there for the people to decide for themselves. If it makes sense, they can start following me. If it doesn't make sense, don't follow me. In 5 years' time, maybe it's going to make sense. then you can start following me. I literally people now for 12, 13 years that been following me, that only now start with the courses, because now for the first time they unclutter themselves, where they see, but this that I thought would work, that is not working. Okay, so yeah, that may be an excellent way to start, is looking at the YouTube. There's a ton of, I think I've got about 500 open videos. I've got more than 1,000, but some of them I'm using for education or for webinars where you need to have the link in order to be able to see it.
Mm-hmm. Just a quick question that I think that's probably one of the biggest questions I get as being from an accountant's view is the difference between owning a property and renting a property for your primary residence. Just a quick summary of your belief. I know there's a variety of various opinions, but I'm very interested in yours.
Well, mine is the only one that is right. All the others are speculating, because unless you can do a calculation, and unless you know what to look for, a property's got 27 variables. So it's a combination of all 27 variables that's going to give you your internal rate of return, as an example, or your modified internal rate of return. And that your internal rate of return measures the growth of your money in the property. So the majority of people are conditioned to believe that property is the right location. You buy the best possible property in the best possible location, and then there's capital growth. So that story that they do not make more property and so forth. Unfortunately, we are so conditioned to believe that it becomes our reference points. But if you really think about a property, especially a house, that location where you're buying a property, that location grows more or less at inflation rate, maybe 1% over the 10-year moving average, maybe 1 or 2% more than inflation. But then the prices of property follows exactly that same curve. So if you take a property and you buy that property cash, as an example, to stay in, you're going to find that a property of 1.2 million at a 7% inflation in 10 years' time, the rule of 72, divide 72 by 10, gives you a 7.2% inflation. So in 10 years' time, that property seems like you're sitting now with a 2.4 million a property. But that's a lie, because if you look at the time value of money, you're going to find it's exactly worth what it is worth today. So there's no growth. It's a perception that there's growth because we see more money. But now we have to take into consideration all 27 factors or risk factors in order to calculate. But the amount of money, if I bought cash, in terms of the deposit, which is a cash amount, plus other costs, plus the estate duty or real estate agent's commission, if you start taking all that into consideration, then you're going to see, but what is the real growth on my investment? So I can categorically tell you that 99% of the people that has got a house is making the biggest mistake in their lives, because you can't look at your house. My house, this house that I'm staying in, I'm 61 years of age. I'm supposed to be, some people would say, on retirement, but I still need a roof over my head, you know. And one of the arguments, yeah, I'm going to buy a smaller place. First of all, the only reason why I see people buying smaller places is because they can't afford their standard of living. They have to downscale, and the easiest way to downscale is to say, okay, I'm selling my house and take a small portion. But that's also a myth, because you'll see that very few people can downscale their standard of living. In other words, they go to a retirement village, but more or less in the same circle of friends. That means that they're just going to change a big property for a small property, but they still need the property. Okay, so from an investment point of view, that makes no sense. But the moment that you understand the 27 variables, and you can distinguish between what we call, you'll know it, the use of fract and the bare dominium. So the bare dominium is actually then the investment portion of your house, if you want to see it, and at the later stage use that as security. But the use of fract is you have to pay if you start. Where do you stay? You have to give the shelter and security for your family. So the moment that you know how to make that distinction between those two, use of fract and investment portion, then it's very simple to see what the growth on the investment portion is going to be. Now, what 99% of the people do, where they've got no freaking idea what their money and how their money should grow for them. So I've developed in '87 for myself a little formula. I call it my financial freedom growth rate, because we sit in a society where it's damn expensive for the average person to live, and they have to keep up with the Joneses. In other words, they overextend themselves. So they've got very, very little money left in order to invest, in other words, a surplus, in order to get the growth. And then they take that money to someone that's going to give them, if they're lucky, a 20 or a 17% growth. The best unit trust, by the way, last year, 17.78% growth. And 17.78% growth on a small base will never ever make you rich, even if you take your full salary and before tax and put it into a 17%, you won't be able to retire in 10 years. And when I started when I was 30, when I discovered this, my goal was to retire in 10 years' time. We did it in 7 years, actually, simply because the moment that you know I've got so much to invest and this is what I need to get, then you calculate your financial freedom growth rate. Now, when it comes to property, that portion, your investment portion, must grow at a higher rate than your financial freedom growth rate, because otherwise you are sitting with a debt investment, even if it's your house. So to answer your question is very simple. Do the calculation. So if I can buy a property where my investment portion of that property is higher than what I need in order to get to financial freedom, then I rather buy the property and I stay in the property, right? And then the surplus money in order to get that calculation. If I can't do that, then it's far better to rent, because now I'm sitting with an opportunity where I'm, say for example, I can afford 10,000 Rand as an example per month, in terms of I'm getting 30,000 Rand my household income. So 10,000 I can buy a house for. And then the investment portion of that house, if, for example, my rent that I can get for that house is 4,000, it means I have to invest 6,000. So if I can invest, get a rental for 4,000, invest the 6,000 at 55%, I'll be 10 times better off to rent than to buy. But if we reverse it, if I can get 6,000 and I would pay 6,000 and only cost 4,000, then I have to compare the 4,000 on my unit trust or whatever investment I'd like to make. And again, what's the best unit trust that I can get? But I can also buy a property. So I can convert this whole story and say, okay, but I rent and buy a property because now I can get a bond of 10,000, the subsidy of 6,000, 4,000 out of my own pocket, right? And now I'm growing that because I'm actually, the rental portion is what I'm paying rent for my place. But this property has got, but there's no ways, Jasper, that you can do this unless you can do a calculation. You know, and everyone tells you it's difficult. It's 27 variables. You've got a system. You slot it in within 5 minutes. I know any variable change, what the effect will be in a property. And then property, simple. It's actually very simple. But if you can't do the calculation, you're going to buy on emotion. And if you're buying on emotion, if I look at a little bit of stats, and you can find it on banksurfafrica.co.za and MoneyWeb and those places. But if you take an income of 25, only 25,000 after tax in South Africa at the moment, only 0.24% of all South Africans earn that. And some of them then are full-time still in a business because they can't survive, out of the 4.4 million people that's over the age of 60 at the moment, 3,630,000 of those people receive an old age grant. So this idea, this concept that we have that it's going to be okay, it's bullshit. The government and the financial institutions must keep you stupid. That's their job. The moment that you become informed, you are not going to be bound by their system. And that's the only way that you can get free. One of the things that we're sitting in South Africa at the moment is this, where on the whites they want to expropriate land. A simple example. And I listen to other countries and they say if it's a demographic decision, then we're going to fall in, and that's okay. So you can literally steal someone else's simply because in a democracy, the majority of people, but if the majority of people are stupid and they are uninformed and you control them by means of a vote in order to promise them something for free, of course they're going to vote. But that doesn't take away that you're busy stealing from a person that bloody worked flipping hard for the money, and that a government legalized. Most of the properties, or a lot of my students' properties, were bought after 1994. In other words, then I want all my money back, plus everything, because all my taxes, everything that I... But the moment that you understand this, now it seems as if that's going to happen. That's not going to happen. That's a way to get more votes, okay? Because it's not that easy in order to expropriate without compensation. But eventually, I think that the bargains will now start appear more and more. I think the ANC will have a very, very specific strategy that they will not share with the majority mainstream. But the thing is, they're going to make a story and then withdraw, make a story and withdraw. But each and every time, it's a closer step to get to the end goal. And this whole thing that people think that the ANC is bullshit, it's socialism. And socialism never has worked and will never work. And you must be very close to stupid to believe that a system like that can work. But there's a lot of stupid people out there. And the reason why I say stupid people is not that intelligently they're stupid. It's they are conditioned to be stupid, to believe a lie. And as long as you, I call it confoculate. As long as you're in a state of confoculation, which simply means that you do not, it's a mental definition of when you do not know that you don't know what you're supposed to know. As long as you're in that mental state, the financial institutions or government can control you and manipulate you like crazy, and you will not bloody know it. In other words, 90% of the people that buy houses do it because they honestly and truly and believe, because their parents believe it, their friends believe it, that a house is a great investment. It's a bloody stupid investment if that investment is going to give you a 5 or a 10% growth, taking all the factors into consideration. But yeah, and this is my passion, is to show people, flip this another way, don't flip and trust the bloody governments. Not the old government, not the new government, not the government that's going to come into power, because it's going to change. Everything changes. But the figure does not change. Descartes, many years ago, tried to find the truth, and then he found there's only one truth. It's not in religion, it's not in politics, it's in a math. And that calculation does not lie, it can't lie. 1 + 1 is 2 in any country, anywhere in the world. And when I discovered this in 1987, my mind blew. I was busy studying to become a certified financial planner with all this nonsense and make it more difficult. And none of those investments will be able to help you to get to financial freedom in less than 10 years. So luckily, I trusted myself, and a lot of people, of course, said I was crazy and mad and stuff like that, and tried to ridicule me and stuff. But when I retired, that's the nicest feeling, is when a person says that you're stupid to prove them wrong, you know, or you can't do something. And for that reason, I love challenges, you know. Yeah, but that's just the way that I operate.
Thank you very much for all the information regarding the properties. If I can step towards morning rituals and daily habits, you being an entrepreneur for many years, do you have any specific morning routine or rituals that you follow to set up your day?
Yeah, I think the most important part is always your mindset. I say there are laggers, ziggers, zaggers, and blizzards. And you must get into a mindset where you know that we are living in a world of total abundance. We were created to have a life of abundance. And the only reason why we haven't got it in all areas of our lives is simply because we believe other people or our parents or whoever. So the first thing that I do in the morning is it's not really a meditation session, but gratitude to me is really important. You know, I'm 61. If I open my eyes and I feel good and I can tackle the day, I start giving thanks. And I start giving thanks. My wife is lying next to me, that we're okay, that we had a great night, and that my children, as far as I know, that they're okay. You know, so financially that we're okay, that we've got the security, physically, my friends. And so it's like an orientation. One of the things that I've got when I open my eyes, I'm immediately, there's no in between. A lot of people, they're not immediately there. Luckily I'm immediately there, and I can start thinking. And then I start my daily ritual. Always start with a cup of first do the thing to clear up, and then a cup of coffee, and then I sit down and I decide what I'm going to do for the day. So I've got like a list, and nowadays I do not have a lot of stuff to do. So I ask a question, and the question is simply, what's the most important thing that I can do today in order to get to my goal? Now, I've got several goals in several areas of my life. One of the goals is physically, I'm reasonably fit. I've set a goal on my 60th birthday, actually when I was 59, to do 60 push-ups in a row at the age of 60. And I'm maintaining that. This morning was my push-up ritual. This morning I did 60 in the one session and then 70 in the next session. I've also got a heart rate a thing where I haven't missed a single day over the last little bit more than a year, where my heart rate, I'm taking at the average on 120 beats per minute, must take it up to maximum, even if it's for 4 or 5 seconds. In my case, it's 159 now. And then do that on a daily basis and be able to prove it to myself or to the world. So those are my rituals and basic rituals. So I believe that mentally I read a lot. I read at least 3 to 4 hours per day, or study, or try something new. And that's what I believe. Mentally you must be fit, and physically you must be fit, and spiritually you must be fit, and financially you must be fit. Socially you must be fit. So the 7 areas of life you need to, and you can't skip a day. I can't decide today I'm not going to pay attention to my wife or my children or my grandchildren. It is literally on a day-to-day basis, even by acting your wife for a little bit longer than what she expected, that surprise, which is part of entrepreneurship, if I could put it to you that way. That's important. So unless you've got goals, one of the goals that I've set, for example, now, in the beginning of this month, is to outperform with cryptocurrencies the best performing unit trust here in South Africa with at least 300%. And so I love goals. A goal is a progressive realization of a worthy goal. If you listen to Earl Nightingale, my definition, in other words, if you set a goal and at the end of the day you can look back at the day, one of my rituals at the end of the day, I'm asking 3 questions. What is it that I've done? Not what is it that I'm busy with? What is it that I've done that I can prove? And then the second question, what is it that I've learned? Because unless you learn something on a day-to-day basis, and preferably in all areas of life, that day was a waste. And then what problems that I encounter, and those problems are actually miracles sent from heaven, because the moment that you focus on a problem to overcome that problem, you have to gain the skills to do that. And once you overcome that problem cannot and will never appear. And if it appears, you've got the skills in order to be able to offset it. So those are the 3 questions that I end my day with, before I go to bed. Just recap quickly, what is it that I've done, and can I prove that I've done for the day? And by doing that, it's a progressive realization of a worthy goal, which falls into the Kaizen principle, a constant and never-ending improvement. And that means that each and every day I'm supposed to be a little bit better than what I was yesterday. And this story, by the way, started way back in 1982 when I was down and out and flipping nothing worked in my life. And I read a book by Mandino, The Greatest Secret in the World. Because I wanted to find out that secret. I was there in a miserable place, financially, business-wise, socially, physically, and I wanted to know it. And one verse changed my life, and that verse is in Scroll 4, and it says, "I'm not on this earth by chance. I'm here for a purpose, and that purpose is not to shrink into a grain of sand, but to grow into a mountain. And henceforth, I'll apply all my efforts to become the highest mountain of them all, and I will strain my potential until it cries for mercy." And that night, I realized that by blaming, you don't strain. So the only way that you can strain is by taking full responsibility. And if of course, I did not understand that concept at that stage. That was in 82. I only discovered the financial breakthrough only came in 87. But it was because of that responsibility that I started querying every bloody thing that I was busy doing. And don't just take it because someone says it's the truth. That sort of thing. Yeah, so I'm a serious believer in goal setting, as well as to set a goal means absolutely nothing. Everyone, I believe, normally in January, the 1st of January, set a goal. But my goals, if you want to improve yourself and you are really serious about that to become the best that you can be, because this is what I believe we are here on earth, is there needs a constant and improvement. It's really hard. It's work. My definition, by the way, for success is the ability to bear pain. Normal people, unfortunately, are not prepared to do that. They stay within their comfort zones. And that's the main reason why 99.76% of all South Africans will be bloody poor when they retire, because they will not have 25,000. Of course, they will have 200 million excuses, but that 200 million excuses still means that they are poor. So I think it's time for us to wake up and to start living. Not say that we live and not try to go to bloody work every single day of your life from 8 to 5 and sitting in traffic. Do what we are doing at the moment and live our lives.
You've quickly mentioned a book there as well, and being this webinar is for startup entrepreneurs that want to start being an entrepreneur, being a property investor. Any books that you suggest, maybe 1 or 2 that really assisted you in the beginning of your path?
The book that had the greatest for me to kickstart, and it had nothing to do with finances. I thought initially when I read the book it was this book by Mandino, The Greatest Secret in the World. That had a massive impact in me, on my life. And then in 94 I read, but then I was already, let's call it, successful. In 94 I read a book by Tony Robbins, Awakening the Giant Within, and that book literally resonated with me. I think it was in 94, or maybe it was in July, either 93 or 94. And that book had a massive impact on me. I do not believe in this book that he's doing at the moment, but from a mental preparedness, that's a great book. Another book that, if you're really into finances and investments, that I've enjoyed tremendously, and there's a lot of, especially if you know how to apply the wealth creator strategy, is to read a book about Warren Buffett. It's Snowball. It's an incredible deep insights into what he's doing and how he's thinking and why he's so successful. And by the way, he's applying the formula for riches is one of my books that I've written. And then on a spiritual side, a course in miracles. In fact, I've said to my wife, I'm going to do that again as soon as I'm finished with the stuff that I'm busy with at the moment. Those are basically books. Of course, I read like 3 hours a day. Well, I try sometimes even more, but those are the books that had the biggest impact in my life.
That's really a few very good books. I can also resonate with you in the sense of all those books. It's really good books. Do you have any last tips for a startup entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think if you look at the definition, or one of my definitions to be successful in life, is to get the right information in the right order for the level of the game that you're at, and then you have to go out and apply it, which simply means you can't go to the academics because they've proved absolutely nothing in terms of the real world. They've got a lot of degrees, but they're useless when it comes to making money, most of them, not all of them. And then, be careful to listen to experts, especially experts that is giving training based on what they've learned, and they're great salesmen, but they can't actually prove a damn thing. It's a different thing to get people and say, okay, do this and this and this because I regurgitate what I've learned. And in doing so, I'm making a lot of money. But it's a different thing to say, okay, I've done it and this is how I've done it. Be careful for experts. Expert is there to do the implementation. That's their job. It's not to tell you what you should do and where you should invest your money. Because wherever they say invest your money, they must be accredited in order to, according to the old Financial Services Board. I think it's got a new name now. And they must be accredited, so they can't give you an honest opinion. And then ask them, okay, show me the growth on your investments, not where you tell me where to invest. And you'll find that 90% of those so-called gurus do not even invest in the stuff that they are teaching you or telling you to invest. They do it for the commission, or that's the way that I see it. I may be wrong, or maybe the industry has changed. But from my experience, that is basically, the way that I've experienced it. But they are good people, nothing wrong with them, and their job is to implement. And this Pareto principle, 80% to get a 20% result. Their job is to do that 80%, but your job is to find that 20% that's going to give you the 80% result, and therefore you use those people, other people's time and effort. And in property, if you do that, then the tenant is paying, so it doesn't cost you a cent in order to be able to do it. So I love that.
Your advice is spot on. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate your time today. Thank you very much for joining me.
Only my pleasure. It was great talking to you. Although I've done all the talking, next time I'll start asking you a couple of questions. Okay. But thanks.
You're more than welcome.
Really, maybe it can help someone. So if people want to know a little bit more about me, go to hannesdreyer.com. or Wealth Creators University or Wealth Creators Method, or like you've said, join me on YouTube. From time to time, I do post, and there's a lot of stuff there that they can find that can maybe help.
Thank you very much.
Okay, my pleasure.